We Created a Country by Michael Botur, from the collection Blood Alcohol, 10 Tales, read by the author. In We Created a Country, millionaire business owners Ross and Jennifer fall in love while trying to restore Northland to its pristine natural state through conservation and cleanups. But after borrowing billions to ban development from the far north, the nature lovers learn what Mother Earth really thinks about mankind. We Created a Country. It's January 1996, a sizzling Saturday. We're wrestling rubbish out of the side of a hilly slope above the glittering Pawanui Marina, where many of us have boats parked, handing black bags stuffed with nappies and Big Mac boxes in a human chain down to a removable dumpster, planting baby trees in each hole that we pull trash out of. My bra strap has dusty sweat under it, and there is spiderweb in our hair, and we are pestered by wasps, though the dirt feels good under my polished nails, and we all know that we'll be back in our suits soon. Me and all the other business people are doing this litter cleanup for a Sunday photo op, desperate to let anyone reading our company's annual reports know that we are restoring the damaged ecosystem, putting trees and birds back, corporate social responsibility with big, pretentious capital letters. It is Ross Liu, the unimpressed-looking founder of K2 Clothing, who has gathered us, emailing around the Exporters Association. Ross is equally as money-focused as everybody else, it's just that he feels the guilt more. Ross is our leader this morning, dressed in a high-vis vest and sun hat. You'd think that he would put on a flashy smile display. Instead, Ross looks down with a black glare from the steepest parts of the slope, working impatiently on his own, wiping his frowning brow, grumpily planting Cody seedlings, unimpressed by our brand new dirt-free gardening gear. Ross has this tug-of-war thing with K2 Clothing. He wants every item of outdoor wear that K2 sells to last 50 years into the future. Meanwhile, his board of directors wants items made in Macau to return profits today, and the board always wins. Ross hates unethical goods and any people who sell them. This includes the warehouse guy to my right, the Kamalco lady, the Hellenstein brothers. My company, Fiordlandware, is on Ross's shit list too. We fly in textiles from Guangzhou for $20 a kilogram. Every kilo we upsell for $450. The dyes that turn the Pearl River purple are not our problem. Like everyone here, I stuff toxic shit into a crowded world. I collect a six-figure salary, and I buy the guilt away with occasional planting and volunteering. The K2 Clothing Community Cleanup is declared complete at 11 a.m. and Ross grumbles thanks, implying that all us executives should fuck off back to our catamarans. You don't have to wait around, Ross says as I linger at the end, lifting up his t-shirt and dabbing his brow. Rocky stomach, hard and starving, his abs like a board that he punishes himself on. Go enjoy your photo op, you don't have to pretend to care. I'm not pretending, this stuff's important to me. Ross's eyes drill into me, and then he trudges down the slope, glancing over his shoulder to see if I will follow. Buy me a drink then, he calls. Convince me. We sip and nibble in armchairs in front of a stone fireplace at the Pawanui Yacht Club. We don't care that the place dates back to 1879. We don't care about the soup of the day. We are nearly 50, and we are hunched in a flirty conspiracy, giddy as teenagers, our eyes dancing tango. Ross has exhausted 3 wives, I read in a recent Forbes profile. I wonder when somebody last fucked him. So you haven't really asked me who I work for and why I got invited to your thing, I tell Ross. Very well, you are Jennifer Tualamalii, I believe is the pronunciation. You are co-founder of Fiordlandware, and you consider yourself adventurous, according to your profile in the National Business Review. Let's see. You do faux outdoor garments, you do mock alpine displays in your stores. What else? Fake snow, stuffed Kia, ho-hum. You make clothing for people to pretend that they are outdoorsy. And you've just expanded into Australia, which makes you and your shareholders wealthy. Hurrah! More fast fashion, more bins stuffed with plant-based fabrics. Hey, stop me if I'm wrong. Well, same for you though, right, Ross? Your company made, what was it, 97 mil last year, and your stake is, what, 22%? He leans forward into a secretive huddle. I'm growing my money big time. Then, when I've got enough... He looks around the tables and then hunkers deeper. Everything we've achieved this morning, Jen, it's nothing but an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Actually, we were near the top of the cliff, I tell him with a wink. He doesn't find my joke funny and doesn't think that my wink is alluring. He stays, though, and our 30-minute coffee swirls into a day of brain sex. Chablis, pizza, a cheese platter, more wine. We talk about riparian planting, we talk mountaineering, we talk native orchids, we talk rewilding Siberian mammoths. Ross raves about flying Cessnas and gliders and rock climbing. He loves getting away from the office, where his chess moves mean millions. And he says that on his birthday this year he will treat himself to a new BKC Pedal Drive Pro kayak and he will paddle around Vancouver Island. It's a tandem kayak, but Ross does almost everything by himself. What do you get for the man who has everything? I nervously joke. Ross, intense with his Asperger's or something, doesn't waste a second on laughter. What do you get? Buy me the moon so I can stop people walking on it, he says. Give me an ocean of fish that can grow to maturity without being harvested. Bring back megafauna to fill in gaps in the ecosystem. Because those little cleanups, Jen, they barely make a dent. Not while the global population is hitting 6 billion. Are you following me? I'm following so long as you lead, I want to scream. Ceding control of the earth to animals, letting vines overgrow villages. People usually think that I'm insane for such ideas. By 4 o'clock, the staff are stacking chairs and they are sweeping. We both have to fly back to our homes, me to the north shore of Auckland, Ross to Wellington. I've tried to do my half of the talking, but Ross is a flash flood sweeping down a hill, and the only option is to go in his direction. He moves to the door, puts on impenetrable black aviator glasses. He takes off the high-vis vest that he's been too excited to remember to remove. On his sweaty, dust-stained t-shirt it reads, "Animals are friends, not food." He sighs, just 2 words into his sentence, exhausted by the rock that he's chosen to carry. Look, Jen, what I intend to work towards is stopping cities. Stopping all of them. A complete ban on urban expansion. Portion off a meaningful piece of the world. Restore it completely pristine. But, yeah, it's expensive. I need to work out a way to make it pay. You talking about a park? I ask Ross. Bigger, he goes. A national park. Or more. I could box off a whole country. He lowers his glasses and looks at me hard and tells me that I'm the first person not to have laughed. Each time we meet, Ross has fewer days left to fulfill his missions. He spends a lot of time listening to books on cassette, philosophy, something about how you only get 4,000 weeks on Earth. As K2 expands in the Northern Hemisphere, his shares make him worth thousands more each day, although his impatience increases at the same rate. He thrashes, he cuts, he expands, he churns through managers who don't give him the results that K2 needs. Wind creeps into the cracks around his eyes, like the wilderness wants him. He kayaks Canada, he climbs Erebus, he sails to Samoa. He always carries a bagged sandwich, seldom takes me. The more successful K2's expansion, the more that he compensates by wrestling with the world, bullying his board to sign off on broad, risky, ruthless moves, torrents of revenue, huge loans, billion-dollar decisions, deals in Denmark, Dresden, Dubai, and big nature adventures for my wild man. Ross's board and buildings remain in Wellington, while my company's headquarters are in Auckland. Across 1998, we squeeze in dates and tightly coordinated windows in time. February 1999. We are bobbing on his launch off Stewart Island when Ross announces that he's got a plan for me. Sudden decisions after months of meditation are how his brain works. A whistleblower told The Economist recently that Ross is an unpredictable tyrant. Autistic, surely, but it's not that. Ross just does what his conscience tells him. Inspiration blows across like mountain weather. You're going to sell your shares and come work conservation with me full time, 4 years from now, realistically, he tells me. Ross rises as if the plans are finalised and pulls the outboard motor cord, puttering back to confront the world. At 3 a.m, on the windy balcony of our mountaintop lodge, I spread my fingers across the indigo island. The Milky Way glows overhead, violet dust on black. Make one of those dark sky sanctuaries, I tell him. Purchase somewhere like this. Buy up the remnant farms and you'll have uninterrupted wildlife corridors. Borrow big time if you don't have the collateral, I continue, squeezing in words in a rare lull in Ross's endless battle speech. Hey, talk to people overseas. Remind them that our land is massively valuable. New Zealand is where people are going to flock to after the apocalypse, okay? Nothing goes up in value as steadily as land, I remind him. Invest now, restore each parcel, watch the assets climb. Banks will recognise that. The next morning, Ross gets his numbers faxed through to the pub hotel at Oban. He has got just under 20 million to play with. It's not enough to buy the national park that he dreams of, but it's maybe enough to get lenders' attention. As we buckle into our seats on the K2 company jet, bouncing toward takeoff, I tell him that if creating a country and standing back and letting fauna run rampant harms our finances or gets us injured or sued, then okay. We value Mother Nature more than ourselves. We need to go hard. We need to fight to get it done. We need to set an example for conservationists around the globe. And I also tell him that 3 divorces is enough, and that if he marries again, it's till death do us part. Growing our companies is like riding a volcano. Exhilarating acquisitions, dangerous debt, toxic politics, fighting for shelf space in Sydney and San Fran. My company leases Bangkok factories and his hires hungry migrants to lower manufacturing costs. We both take jobs away from New Zealanders and sell our garments back to upper middle class Kiwis for as much as we can. In Doha and Denver and Dublin, they buy our gear with the promise that we'll transport them to the Alps. Plus $1 from every purchase goes to keeping kakapo breeding. Just having K2 on your collar or Fiordland wear on your hood makes you imagine that nature is grateful for you. We catch up at Auckland Airport in a 30-hour window between flights. Ross heading to Antarctica to supervise a photo shoot. Me booked for Bangkok to check cheapness. He drags me to the car in the parking building, and I demand to know what the surprise is until I see, half crawled out of the back windows of his Prius, a wriggling black mass of muscle with glowing copper legs. Ta-da! It's a Rottweiler, a girl, who slobbers my crotch and sticks her head between my thighs as I sniffle overjoyed. Faunus, we name her, the Roman goddess of the forest. She's an SPCA rescue dog, of course, because Ross has strict rules about allowing any more toothed mammals into the ecosystem. I weep with relief into Ross's chest, leaving 2 black patches from my wet eyes. Babies aren't really my thing, and Faunus is the first good mammal that I can wrap my love around. It's the first of many, we hope. Soon, hawks and bats and fish will thank us for what we are planning to do for them. It costs 4 figures to find a hotel room that allows dogs. That night we don't even make love. We just wrestle with our Rottweiler on the rug and tickle her hard, knobbly paws and lift her jowls to inspect her teeth, while she pants patiently as we joke about the wolf inside Fawny waiting to get out. We make 1,000 plans and we talk up a fantasy of using our faunus to sniff out kiwi eggs, and we enroll Fawny Girl in doggy daycare near my home the next day, promising to take her out as much as we can when we are not busy with meetings, knowing deep down that she will be an occasional dog, something that we take out when we feel the guilt. Look in her eye as we leave her at doggy daycare, saying that she resents us, that she would crush our bones in her jaws to teach us a lesson. Not that it's in her nature. She's a sweet girl. She's all love and drool and can I help you? On Friday afternoons, reckless Ross abandons his mobile phone, helicopters into national parks, and puts himself at the mercy of rivers and cliffs and twisted ankles. Occasionally, he remembers to invite me. Not often, though. His glider lands violently beside Lake Taupo. His fancy double kayak tips on Whanganui River rapids without me in the back to balance. We are past 50 and I am starting to stay inside more, while Ross seems determined to play toreador till death ambushes him. Because he doesn't fear dying in the wild, he just resents death for interrupting his plans. You know what, Jen? You're right about buying a major chunk of land, Ross says one night, rolling off me mid-sex, deflating. The only man I've ever met who would sacrifice pussy for philosophy. It'll need to be maximum value for dollar, he concludes, pacing the room naked. Not hectares, square Ks. Serious land. Over the next 2 years, wherever he is in the world, from hotels in Hamburg to trains in Thailand, Ross talks to vast Californian and Japanese and South African private equity firms. Urgent handwriting pours out of the Brother F2000 fax machine. Forest land plus carbon credits equals skyrocketing value. We just need to front $40 million buy-in for investors. At a bend-in-the-road pub, minutes from some lake in Northland called Omapere, farm veterinarian and Ratana minister Henry Marsden marries us in the garden bar of the Okaiho Hotel. It's natural here. Birdsong and bush, barely developed. Northland is poor and peaceful and underpopulated. It's the Garden of Eden, really. We could totally live here, we agree. Throughout 2009, Northland becomes our destination for back-to-nature weekends. Recovery from the walls of supposed importance that we've built up around ourselves. Up north, business can't find us. There's no media, there are few fax machines, there's minimal cell coverage, plus they're dog-friendly. It's heaven. This is the only portion of the world left unspoiled. We have to keep outsiders out. In October, we're out for a stroll along the margins of State Highway 1 when Faunus catches a scent, lurches towards the forest and drags us under the dim, cool canopy, snuffling and crunching twigs as fronds of kawakawa thwap us in the eyes, and we giggle and gasp as we tear our shirts on twigs, and Faunus settles 2 crazy miles later in front of a rotten log, her tail stiff, her eyes demented. She stuffs her big, bone-crushing snout into a cavity under the log at last, and our hearts calcify. She pulls her head back, with nothing in it. 2 scrapes of her paws, and we are sinking to our knees where Faunus has marked a kiwi burrow, bless her. Kisses on her scalp. We wrestle in the leaves, eyes wet lines of joy. Our girl can not only find rare native birds, she can protect them. We cycle along a railway line, and we buy roadside lunch at Ngawha, where we tell the kiwi-sniffing story to Uncle Stan the Hangi Man, who goes on a rant about land use until he concludes that the real reason rivers are thick with cow crap is that dairy prices are rat shit. He's losing money on the land, everyone is, and all that's keeping them staked to their farms is the belief that they will lose money by walking away. Me and my Rossi, we have another idea. When we get back to our room above the pub, Ross takes his laptop into the bathroom and asks the private equity people to support him to piece together an $1,800 million acquisition of every farm on the Northland Auckland border, coast to coast. And that's just the start, he explains. Property here, cheapest in the country, while the GFC has driven prices down. Get the land now while it's affordable. Population's just hit 7 billion worldwide. Land is the only asset that'll always rise in value. 3 words, he tells them. Carbon, offsetting, credits. Buy them while they're cheap, sell them as they rise. Plus, we have the Billion Trees program kicking off. They are way behind on hitting their target 2025. The government needs a place to plant. We will put aside all the land they could ask for. The lenders listen. This is happening. The Northland Ark is what we call our company. It's a non-confrontational name that we can use as we tell 200,000 people that we have come to purchase their property and politely push them off. We quit our jobs and sell our shares, and we build a huge house atop the Brynderwen Hills, 3 stories, 4 offices, 25 rooms. From there, we wrap a tourniquet around Northland and we start to squeeze. The project dies immediately. Well, almost. At our first public meeting at the Pehiawere Marae, we were booed until I dripped tears on the lectern, burning. People squirt spit through their teeth. Locals don't like Ross because he looks like a know-it-all wealthy Asian with monk-like amounts of patience and a brain like a mousetrap, which he is. Me, I can barely get a pass for being brown. They don't like our expensive car, our PowerPoint presentation, our checkbook, our high street belts and boots. The only thing that these people respect is our dog, actually. After the disastrous presentation, the toothless hillbillies rant at me through clouds of cigarette smoke about how we really ought to train up thousands of dogs to eradicate goats. Problem is, nature is trying to set up a no-killing policy. We're more into nature rebalancing itself through regeneration. We are thinking the natural diversity of organisms will sort itself. New Zealand doesn't have alpha predators. We can't encourage the violent carnivorous side of nature. They're not listening, though. They are asking if they can use Faunus to sire some rotty pups. They are inspecting her gums and her fangs while she stands still and obedient as a park bench, patiently panting. Ross has been training our dog to sniff out nests of rare ducks, parakeets, short-tailed bats. She couldn't kill anything if she wanted. Just as we're losing leverage, the government gives us a minister, Māori, local, connected, who reads our pitch deck, rewrites the documents, takes out the wankiness, adds local lingo, and lets everyone know that we are here to repair Papatuanuku, the spirit of the earth. The ministry is obligated to make sure 10% of the country is in conservation land at all times, he tells us, between visits to difficult folks up in the hills. He browbeats people over a cup of tea at the kitchen table, reminding them of what their ancestors would think if they continued to fuck with the land, dunking biscuits in his cup. He's open about the government's agenda. Each time we secure another 100 hectares, the government can release land for a mine near Milford or new gas drilling. No build up north means go ahead down south. These international investments, they balance the books. If the country's quota of preserved land happens to be one unified chunk taking up a whole peninsula instead of fragmented forest, no problem. Everybody wins, it seems, although I lie in bed that night knowing that something bad will happen soon. Because a forestry firm, fronted by a grinning, persuasive Canadian man named Devon Wirehouse, has convinced the government that his timber company, Weyerhaeuser Group, needs to harvest Northland's old growth. There's close to $9 billion of tax that the government can reap through timber sales. If you do not make dollars from the land, you will lose to the centre-right in the next election, he warns. He's leased hundreds of diggers and cement trucks and feller bunches, and they are waiting to fell trees on every rural property that we purchase. But he's just being a bully. I send Devon Wirehouse packing. Although, must admit, I keep his business card. Preaching at the Waimamaku Hotel, the Dargaville Town Hall, the top 10 motel at Donnelly's Crossing, I tell arms-folded audiences and Bob Marley beanies and Ugg boots that the local economy will always struggle. Guys, come on. Each of you may as well cash out. There will never be another opportunity to get $500,000 for walking away. Plus, the power and water are going to be cut off in a year or two. Come on, please, folks, go home tonight and tell 10 people and encourage each of those 10 to sell. Please, take a prospectus. GX Capital and Carlyle Global are putting up $19 billion and $12 billion respectively to purchase almost every building, your whenua, your farms, your forest, your factories, 38,000 shops, petrol stations, quarries, boat berths. 20 churches are approved to remain after we close the region, servicing the few thousand scattered remnants approved to lie in the vast park. Vestiges of Ngāti Kuri up near Kaitaia, a bastion of Ngāti Wai at Whangarei Heads, and hamlets of hanging-on hippies. It's barely worth living here, guys. Look, really you ought to vacate. Your potatoes will be plucked up and eaten by pukeko. Vast flocks of kiriwu wood pigeons will devour your orchards. Expect the beaches to be stuffed with snarling sea lions and for bamboo and moss and vines to wreck every ceiling and storefront. Power poles will rot and crash, and we can't help you once this becomes ungoverned country. O Mapiri, O Pinoni, O Manaia, Kaikohi, Kaitaia, Cooper's Beach. After the little town hall at Maungataroto, 110,000 residents to go. After the Ngongaru Cricket Club, 95,000 residents remain. After the Tallwai Tavern speech, there are 89,000. People roll their eyes and snort. They say nature doesn't give a rat's ass about us. We spent friggin' 50, 100 years calming nature down, bro. How come you suddenly want us to let the leashes off and open the gates and hand the land over? Well, because people move for money. The wall of ice begins to thaw. Kids play with our dog. They squeeze her folds of skin. They finger her jowls. At these meetings, we put fragile bird eggs in her mouth, and Fawny, she just salivates. She's so gentle and caring. You love your mummy and daddy, don't you, girl? And that's our vision, folks. Northland, an expanse of land the size of Wales, is hunting free. Wild pigs will surge in numbers. Birds of prey, feral cats, and disease should hopefully keep the population under control. Because animals are friends, not food. Sales snowball. We pay out billions every month. Moira whiz, meatworks, freeze, chains swinging in the wind, while Cody grow and concrete cracks. We buy everything unprotected, including most Pākehā property, with the Crown calling in its 99-year leases and citing covenants from the Queen. The lenders love it. Buying out 80,000 homeowners costs $52 billion across 5 years. $867 million a month. Big digits, but we've straddled such numbers before. The world is crowded. Land values soar and soar, and major lenders know that the government will pay $1 trillion in the future to buy back the province when they are ready to build on it again. By 2015, we've created a country. Birdsong fills valleys for the first time in years. Shy trees become confident. Rivers rinse clean. 17,000 square kilometres emptied. The Defence Force has blocked off State Highway 1 with giant concrete cubes from the western saltwater of Port Albert to the muddy mangroves at Kaiwaka. 1,000 engineers disconnect power lines and pipes as they install a 20-foot fence along the border, and Northland becomes an island. While I work mostly indoors, from our border fortress atop the Brynderwyns, managing the budget, processing reports daily, as well as helping the government divest responsibility for the 900 or so stragglers who want to live among the birds and refuse to leave the park, Ross goes on the road. He's somehow leaner and fitter and more energetic every year that he ages, spending as much time surveying our country as he can. He's out there filing reports for our shareholders on what's left in Northland. He comes home after a good month, raving about buying out Auckland as well after this, or, God, buying the whole North Island even. Ross disappears with tools, with tents, with rations and a satellite phone. paddling his state-of-the-art kayak across stained lakes and rain-brown rivers, taking samples, capturing contamination levels so he can monitor whether taking out people causes pollution. Ross grins down from plains or he rumbles up silent highways, wind on his teeth. The grapevine up here is just 1,000 people now. 1 or 2 people a week encounter Ross out in the wild, looking drugged with joy, gushing about manta rays in the Hokianga Harbour, whales basking in a lagoon. They also report big eggs, some the size of soccer balls, huge white watermelons with 1 or 2 or even 4 litres of protein sloshing inside. The lab says that they resemble the eggs of moa and giant eagle. I'm not so sure. It's hard to collect much evidence when Fawny keeps cracking them, coming home with yolk on her face. She was trained to do the opposite. I don't like this feral thing polluting her good nature. Ross concludes 1 February that the far north has become pristine for the first time in 300 years. Well, at least according to his samples of harbours and rivers and estuaries. Trees are denser than ever. Birds are shitting out record numbers of berries. Fauna have begun to creep down from mountain crevices, unfurl their wings and claws. Kaipara Harbour becomes Ross's next focus. It's half the length of Northland and it's almost as wide. The Kaipara is big enough to give my husband hundreds of secret coves in which he can bob and meditate and cool his shame about how much of a jerk he used to be. Winter 2016, an insane day to be out for most people. Ross gets caught in the frothing harbour mouth where the Tasman gnashes the Kaipara, the current inescapable. Waves scatter his gear and carry his kayak into a white wall of water, and Ross ruins his arms, paddling to landfall somewhere unnamed, from where he pulls his phone from its plastic bag and rings me to tell me he's alive and that the snapper fish out in the harbour are growing nearly 1 metre long, the biggest snapper he's ever seen, with teeth like broken glass. He brings back hard-to-believe stories about giant eagles blacking out the sun, too, huge as condors, circling hungrily, looking for scraps of meat that the snapper have overlooked as they shred a floating cow carcass. April 2017. We are seeing 99.95% of Northland empty, fallow and freed. Somebody photographs Kiwi pecking trash on Kitty's tumbleweed streets. Playground tunnel slide infested with katupole spiders. Tuatara lick their eyes on summer sidewalks. Seals loaf on abandoned boats. Massive birds of prey eradicate lambs and goats and piglets from the mountains, well, according to settlers' reports. It's a perfect example of nature preening itself of invasive species. We are pretty sure the eagles are Hieratius morii, the Haas eagle, the poakai, a raptor the size of an albatross that hasn't been seen in centuries. A settler, their face raked with scars from grappling with the birds, sells a trailer load of eagle bodies to our ecologists who toast with champagne. In the trailer, under the dead eagles, there's also a fluffy feathered corpse the size of a couch, Dinornis robustus, a species of moa, with feet like snowshoes and claws like trowels. Except there are difficult reports to sift through. There are rumours, there are apocrypha, tall tales, frantic flurries of gossip on community notice board pages. Folks at the Okaiho Community Hall are saying that moa are pouring open garbage bags and munching bones in the street. There are reports of sharp-beaked kaka parrots overrunning the Plymouth Brethren compound in Rawene, breaking light bulbs and windows, tearing open sacks of rice and milk powder and wheat that the locals were hoping to live on, causing them to pack up the village and flee. Savage brown gulls called skua are dive-bombing kitchen windows, ransacking cupboards. Raptors are carrying off people's sheep, ripping open beehives, snatching the honey. A plague of spiky weta are chewing through acres of peach and avocado and plums. There's even a report of mosquitoes mobbing a toddler at the Kaiwi Lakes, thousands of the things dissolving the fat of his thighs in a feeding frenzy till he has to be helicoptered out. Even if the reports are true, you are stuck on an island sanctuary. Sorry, folks. You signed the waiver to be here. You knew we were walling the peninsula off. We can't, by law, send trappers in to kill so much as a mouse. Sorry. The end begins on a day with a mould-coloured sky. It is December 2nd, 2019, and I'm at home with Fawny Girl, warming my feet as she snores under my desk. Ross paddles out into the wide Waiho River, launching from Dargaville into the Kaipara Harbour with a waterproof tablet on his lap and rain spattering his glasses, planning to check Maui's dolphin numbers in the harbour and bottle some poo samples and estimate the levels of plastic in their stomachs. He sends one last photo of Snapper circling his kayak, their teeth like toothpicks, hoping to bite his fingers off next time that he strokes the water. As he nears the foamy whirlpools at Poto, at the jaws of the harbour, the wind comes up, waves shoving and tugging and slapping, and Ross's kayak tips end over end, and my man is whitewashed away. When an ordinary person capsizes, their $300 locator beacon descends 50 metres to the sloshing sea bottom, and their gear is strewn across a mile of foreshore. When a high-profile and well-connected conservationist disappears, his $900 smartwatch alerts a satellite, and the satellite tells his staff at Brynderwyn Base, and they pull me aside and offer me a chill pill and a brandy and tell me that Ross is in trouble. A lot of his stuff's on the beach, and we can see his kayak on satellite, they explain. This next part, Jen, it's... What? What, Jen? I'm your employer, you guys. I can handle it. Get us out there. Get him back. Well, we can see him, but... See him? Show me. Get him. Oh, we can, Jen, and we are. We have a chopper ready to fly out. It's just... I don't know if you want to... see what we're seeing in the water. I trust Huan. She's our human resources director. Huan coordinates 903 staff out in the field on barges and ATVs and tractors, engineers, trappers, veterinarians, herpetologists, ornithologists, marine biologists, and she is supposed to look after my Rossi. While Faunus cries under my table, Huan beckons me over to her couch. She is afraid to put her fingers on a tablet and show me the video, so I force her. A satellite zooms in, buffers before the image clarifies. We are 3 meters above Ross, well, above the top third of him anyway. He is trying to wriggle through the murky beach shallows in the direction of a crumbling jetty. The water is churning white around him, stirred and frothing. Ross tries to dig his claws into the beach mud. He slips back a metre, dragged. I see them now, see the fish, snapper, pink with glinting silver spots, huge, the size of pillows. Many of them barging him, slapping against him, twitching. A few are doing all the work in the feeding frenzy, pushing their eyes into the meat where his ankles connect with his feet. The video feed on the tablet turns hazy and wet, but after trying to dry it with my sleeve, I realise that it's just my eyes leaking. I'm desperate to reach through and lower a hand like a skill tester machine and snatch up my man. Ross, soaked and drowned and freezing and exhausted, tries to kick the frenzied fish off. They nip and wriggle and roll. Every snapper that Ross kicks away is replaced by two. He finally collapses in a few inches of surf. Mud shore, shallow enough to stop even the most ravenous cold-blooded fish. Ross is trailing twin ribbons of red candy. His legs bitten away, up to the knees, bleeding into the beetroot surf. The helicopter shakes my backyard, peeling bushes, startling the cleaners and security guards. Huan tells the pilot to hold the helicopter while I gather a backpack of essentials and lace up my boots. I am eligible for a pension and my joints creak, but I am revitalized. I'm held together by whatever it was that moved Ross all these years. Outrage, fury, disgust, worry. I push the wind out of my silver hair as I stagger towards the helicopter to go find Ross. Except there is a setback, because Fawny won't stop barking. I tug a dog jersey over her, attach a leash, lead her into the shuddering washing machine where they hand me earmuffs and a wristwatch with a locator beacon embedded in it, plus a pack with water and a medikit and a glass of champagne for the flight across my country. We look for a space on the heavy twin-engine helicopter. Our pilot settles on the spacious Dargaville Bridge, long and empty as a rugby field. The bridge is the closest we can get. Every other portion of road was washed out last year in uncontrollable floods which swamped the town and pushed mud and mangrove seeds into the main street shop windows, turning every shop into an aquarium. The helicopter offloads Huan and a squad of 4 search and rescue soldiers who overrun me, making rapid kilometres ahead of me with German Shepherd tracker dogs. My own pooch seems to fall into a sleepy, irritable grouch. As soon as we jump down from the helicopter, she is cranky, grumbling, drooly, pink-eyed. She's half the size of a Clydesdale horse, difficult to steer, like it's like something's tugging her, whispering in her ear, telling my girl to be obstinate. Sure you want to go off on your own, Jen? Ross is mine. I've got my pooch. We know every animal out here. I'll be fine, I tell Huan and the team. I slice into the coastal bush to try and track Ross. 5,000 metres, 4,900, 4,800. Coastal woods where the flat furrows of the Kumara farms become knobbly and stone-pocked, and small trees grow until a forest amasses and mossy boughs swallow me and my companion. The gap between the foamy brown shore and the light-sucking forest is only 40 metres, 50 at best, and I can see that with nothing to restrain it, the forest has crept to the coast. Trees have split fences, burst through boardwalk, pushed down gates, colonised sheds and barns, and sprung up in potholes in the middle of the road. It is 2 hours of trudging to get down those first few kilometres of coast towards Ross. My only indicators of the search and rescue guy's location is a scream and someone's name shouted and a pair of gunshots. Sparrows cloud the sky. Otherwise, there's silence. Ross has disappeared from the grid, his sat-watch lost. At a bend in the road that used to be Tikanui, the wharf is dissolving into the water. No visitors here in years. The crunch of footsteps in the reeds. A 3-metre stack of burned bonfire wood, a pyramid of blackened bird skulls the size of footballs, moa and eagles and skua, the click of a shotgun loading. I'm not here to mess with you, I call into the bulrushes, just trying to find my husband. A washed out wooden structure, the paint peeling, a shack, a former shop, Tikanui bait and tackle. A child on the steps, wearing the rugby coaching jacket of some adult who isn't here. The child's face is alive with black grains of rice, 5 streams of traffic, ants all over her, blisters bubbling on her skin. At her feet a skull, strips of dried intestine too, all of it arranged on an XL AC/DC t-shirt, the last scraps of her dad. I kick a long, snapped-open femur, and a centipede scuttles out. The girl holds out a muddy volleyball, hoping I'll play throws with her, but sorry, girl, I have to keep moving. There is no time to pick up orphans. Her family chose to stay in the jungle, even though they were explicitly assisted to leave. In a pathway between the bait shop veranda and the overgrown road, I come upon a black blotch. A Rorschach of dried blood with little chunks on it. Ants ooze over a knob of sandy finger with a gold ring on it. Until earlier today, that finger was attached to my husband. I delicately lift the finger with the ring glued on, with black red scab goo. Oh, Rossi. I place it in my handkerchief and I pocket it. Ross! Hello? I hustle Faunus forward, ripping her snout away from the dried blood that she's licking. We bash through tussock and flax and bulrushes, and the sky dims. Then I'm under the canopy, heading west up a hill rise where native bush grows up through the sandy humus. Sunlight spears the forest. In a dip on a boulder, I find a sandwich bag, soaked in blood, moving with cockroaches, and on top of the bag, speckled with mosquitoes drinking the plasma, a white marble with a black dot. It's an eye. I cry, and I phone Juan, and I pray. There are occasional black peas of dried blood in the sand. I'm afraid to follow. I offer my hand to Fawny, who nips at it, trying to chew the blood from my scraped knuckles. The scents must be driving her crazy. She's hardly staying on her leash, and her mood is schizophrenic, like she's being called in 50 directions at once. I'm distracted by a crunch, the sound of a heavy creature treading leaves. As I adjust my grip on the leash, Fawny shrugs out of her harness and scuttles into the bush. I hear her barking insanely. I whisper to headquarters through my locator device, which trebles as a satellite phone, a locator beacon, and a built-in map. He's close, I think. You guys are in the wrong area. Where are you? The Kanuka trees are intimidatingly tall and black here, crowding the sun, 10 meters high as if on drugs, wild and unrestrained. There are chunks of forest which lead me down into creek gullies, and I lose sight of the sky, and I have to battle through thickets of whipping flax. Magpies circle and jeer. Rust-coloured kaka parrots alert other birds which panic and squawk, every animal in the bush taunting me. Fawny returns with a tan-coloured cushion in her jaws, or someone's lost coat, or a bushel of brown wheat, or a wig, or... No, it's a kiwi, and not quite dead. About to burst from the crushing pressure of Fawny's trash-compacted jaws. The kiwi's eyes are shining galaxies ready to twinkle out. Drop it, Fawny, now! I reach for her. Fawny growls like a chainsaw. She disappears, leaving a trail of bloody feathers. I stagger up a hillock, highest vantage point for miles around. I pull apart a clump of flax, and there it is, a lake, Lake Mokino, I think, an oasis, a thirst quencher, a skin balm. I charge in waist deep, stirring mud, and I gulp fresh water and spit the salt and blood out of my mouth and wonder what's happened to my troop of search and rescue ninjas. They should have found Rossi ahead of me. Something is badly wrong. On the edge of the water, the sensible place. Oh God, yes, helicopters and satellites can see you here, can't they, Rossi? Babe, you were smart till the last. I find his body looking like a scarecrow. My man, with leg stumps soaking into the lake. He is dangling eels from his knees somehow. Their jaws are locked on strands of bleeding elastic. His tendons like unpuffed balloon animals, like crepe paper, like strands of ink-soaked cloth, turning the water pink, while eels wrestle with shreds of chewy tendon, their teeth caught in strands of nerve as they burrow into his snapped-off tibia and escape with mouthfuls of marrow. I rush to my man. I pull his shoulders into me. I smooch his mud-spattered, sun-scorched face and lick the salt off his crusty eyelids. I kiss and snuffle my poor, wet, ringed-in-the-washer baby. I brush out a wetter, chewing on his soaked scalp. He says nothing, just twitches, dipping in and out of a shocked trance. I can tell that he just wants to die. He doesn't seem to feel the eels shredding his legs anymore. My baby with creamy bowling balls behind him that he's been holding, setting aside to the hell? It can't be. Ross appears to be 1 or 2 meters from a pair of eggs the size of soccer balls. I need my dog suddenly. This is no place for people to be. The eggs are disturbing me. Some mother is going to be majorly territorial. A swan? They seem like overgrown swan eggs. Fawny girl, come to mama, I need you. Fawny, where are you? I send a message from my sat phone. I quantify my location as 36 degrees, 20, 40, 4, 3 south. 174 degrees, 04, 15, 4 east. Phone calls aren't working. I copy and paste the digits. Hurry, Juan. Bring the chopper down. Assuming that her and the search and rescue guys aren't too far from where we touched down and that the pilot didn't leave. Assuming this entire fucking province isn't empty and devoid of all but a couple of crackheads and recluses and tribespeople. I upend my bag. I fish out my portable gas stove. I set it facing north, carefully lay out water purification tablets, and then I slice open an instant Bushman dehydrated meal, upending the packet into the pot when I am kicked by a yellow leaf rake tumbling through flax, spiraling in sand. I grab hold of a bush, pull myself into a crouch, and prepare for what's about to hit. It is patrolling, its tawny head darting like a fish, twitching towards scents and sensations. Dumb eyes, vacant, reptilian. A moa, brown and glistening and shaggy. A big beige chicken pawing the leaf litter, defending the piece of dirty man-flesh that it's caught. The towering bird, big as a phone booth, raises my bedraggled man to the clouds and shakes him, and drops my Rossi into another flax bush, and scrapes dirt over what's left of his broken body. Fawny girl! I'm on my bum in a pile of dirty sticks. A nest where something big has been squatting. Faunus, babe? A head, like a thick iron safe, pushes through the flax, its eyes puckered with rage. Faunus crawls on top of me, revving growl like a pot beginning to boil. Fallen and vulnerable, my dog walks over me while I hug my knees. Then she rushes at the legs of the mower, which steps over logs and trunks and reeds to the edge of the lake, panicked and flapping. The bird scrapes sticks and leaves towards Fawny, unable to kick forwards. The big, shaking Rottweiler seizes a flap of its belly and drags it into the woods, shaking, screeching, bones snapping. Faunus treads back to us a moment later, forgetting who raised her, who shampooed her, brushed her fur, tickled her ears. She wraps her jowls around Ross's arm, twists right and then left. The arm snaps. She strains against the polyester of his long-sleeved high-vis thermal top, pushing against him with her paws until she can wrench the arm off. I stick my hand on her snout and try and prise her away. She crushes my fingers. She shakes. I lose my pinky finger. A broken-off white electric shock. I'm focused on my Rossi, though. He's been discarded. A tadpole tumbled in dust. I find what's left of him, a head, one arm, a trunk. I tell him it's going to be all right. The thing is gone. Search and rescue will find us, I promise. I've sent a message. And I'm clawing my whistle and my keys and my stove and my little gas canister into my backpack with my one working hand when the sun cools as an unexpected cloud passes over and the heavy pillow hits us. Duffle, doof, oof, the screaming shred of claws bowling me aside, puncturing Ross's last remaining eye as a sun-blackening eagle plants its talons in my husband's eye sockets and carries his body into the air, screaming victory. He's mine! You're not taking him! Powakai, Heratius, the Haast's eagle. It disappears for a few seconds and then flaps hard, sending piles of leaves flying. I fight to hold his ankle stubs, slippery, bloody, till all that's left in my grasp is purple spaghetti. I lose him after a brief wrestle. I watch the eagle haul him into the air, disappear for a moment, and then crash through the tops of a titanic Cody tree 20 meters up. The bird places Ross in some sort of bough or platform or treehouse. On my bum, weeping, trying to wipe dusty juices from my eyes, I watch clamour. I watch a yapping. I watch a commotion high above, with no way to climb the slippery, limbless trunk. Necks crane and beaks nip at the sky, and they fight over his hand. The eagle's mother spreads its wings as if putting a cloak around the nest so the gods can't see as they shred my husband. They battle over his fingers like children shredding Easter eggs. Ross's last eye is flying out of the nest, landing beside my toes, and then a rope of intestine like wet ticker tape and something ear-shaped resembling a mushroom. The trees bend and shiver. Drizzle of leaves. Skull fragments rain. I cup my hands, attempt to catch the fragments of teeth and fingers and hanks of bloody hair knocked out of the nest during the feeding frenzy. Broken sticks and pieces of straw and feathers and old bones rain down as the treetops are flattened by a sudden tornado as the eagle panics and flaps and wraps its wings around the nest and protests, and I realize the helicopter has arrived and a marksman is blasting the eagle with 8 swift pops of a pump-action shotgun and a further 2, and then a second trooper, tethered, aims a snout which squirts fire at the nest. An awful cooking stench, burned, meaty sulphur. Cinders blacken the air, every baby bird incinerated. And I'm walloped by the agony of my bitten-off finger, knees dissolving, the forest floor pulling, as they lower a ladder. Wire House arrives at my door 2 days after. 100 logging trucks, 100 fella bunches, 100 log loaders behind him at the border, waiting to level the land. And cement mixers too. 10 cement mixers, ready to fill in difficult dips in the logging roads. A couple of trucks full of asphalt too, and a grader to help the trucks to get to where they need to work. The queue of vehicles behind his Humvee stretches 3 kilometres, like an army on wheels, pressuring the border, trying to find an aperture to flood in. It's time to harvest and sell, Wirehouse says. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Let them through, I tell my sentries at the gate below. Tell them I said to cut it all down and pour the asphalt on.